Let's continue this conversation, and maybe the most talked about swing heading into Rome, Greg, is the one of Justin Thomas. And we saw him in Napa at the Fortinet Championship. We've seen on Instagram him tinkering with all the different devices on the range, as Michael alluded to earlier, maybe taking more control of his own process. When you look at an elite ball striker, a guy who has been the top player in the world, going through a struggle, when you look at his swing and you look at everything that's going on around him right now, what do you see?
Well, the one thing is, I loved a couple things about the video of him working on his swing. One, he's using swim noodles. And, if you've watched any of Michael Breed's videos, those are the best instructional devices. Yes. And underneath those swim noodles was PVC pipe, I guess. Yeah.
It's another thing I believe in.
Yes. So I really think that Justin got that instructional device from
he's peeking in
a New Breed of Golf
He's
Live.
peeking in.
And it was, for that reason, it was really wise. But what I like is it seemed to me like he was trying to get his arms more vertical, a little more upright, which is what Justin Thomas used to always do. That's the position at the top of his golf swing where he's able to work the ball both ways and play shots, especially the fade. And I think over this past year, his ability to play a fade, even though he likes to work it both ways, the fade is the stock shot. And while he has that stock shot, as that starts to come back, all of a sudden he can take really difficult, challenging situations and make them much more simple.
The way that I always think about this, Michael, is, we hear the top players kind of say you're never as bad as you think you are. You're never as good as you think you are. A guy who seems so close at all times is Justin Thomas. Is it physical? Is it just confidence, right? Go out there, start playing well, and watch the swing turn around.
Well, it's interesting, and I know Mark can talk about this. He follows the tour regularly. I think a lot of times when you get to the level of working with the elite level player, the quest for better sometimes can lead in some bad directions. And I think what happened with JT is, he's looking at his game and he's going, man, if I can get to where I can drive the ball a little bit better, I'm going to take that next step. And you're talking about a guy that's a 2-time major champion, but at the same time, everybody wants more. Everybody wants better. And so I think what he did was he started chasing something that I don't know that he needed to chase. And what he started to do was he started to try to get out of his swing, because he is a little upright. He with the driver lay the golf club down a little bit too much. And so he started getting into a flatter plane with his arm swing. And all of a sudden, in an effort to try to take that laying down out of the swing, he all of a sudden lost his sort of dependable part of his game, and that was his iron play. He's always been a very good wedge player, and that got a little bit weak as well. And you now look at a guy who was kind of so-so with his tee game and so-so with his putting game, but he had reliance with his iron play, and he had some reliance around the greens. And now he kind of lost that iron game, and things went a little sideways. And I think what I like seeing with Justin, and I think one of the things that we all need to do is ask a simple question of why. Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. Why are you making the change that you're making, and is it going to make that big of a difference? I think there have been a lot of great players that have played, particularly lately. And I go back to Jordan Spieth, who have played really good golf, not being great drivers of the golf ball. But their iron play has bailed them out. Their short game has assisted them. And of course, if you get a little streaky with your putter, it can lead to some really good things. And of course, JT he's got a Hall of Fame career. I don't know that he needed to alter his motion. But I do think that when players at the elite level start chasing better, it sometimes doesn't lead in a great direction. And I think as he is working his way back to where he was with his motion, I think you're going to start to see him perform more similarly to what he did in 2022 and prior to that than what you saw in 2023. And Mark, you know this a lot. You've worked with great players. Sometimes that quest for better can really lead to some bad places.
You're so right. And I've just got a couple of things I'd add to what you say, and everything you say is just on point. First off, just like you say, Rick, I feel like all these guys at this level, And every golfer listening to this or watching this has had that moment where you really only one swing thought or one idea or one swing feel away from success, especially at this level. And one big week, that it turns careers at times. I mean, I've been privy to this when I was working with some guys on the PGA Tour. So that's number one. Number two, I like what Michael said about the power, because Rory, by his own admission, when he started chasing after more with Bryson, he started to do his golf swing in, and the wedge game went in the tank. And the truth of these guys is, on these golf courses that are 75, 7,600 yards long, they play kind of firm. If you just put the ball in the fairway anyhow, you got scoring clubs in hand. And that's where Justin made his money. And so this is where I get, and this is, not that Mike Thomas doesn't know what he's doing, but when you start trying to improve one area of the game, to Michael's point, like a SWOT analysis, for argument's sake, right? The weakness in JT's game was the driver was errant and the putter was kind of iffy. So then you start to devote more time there, and you disregard, if you will, your strengths, and all of a sudden your strength, and every great player in the Hall of Fame has been a fantastic iron player and they can putt. Then your strength starts to go away. Now, all of a sudden, you got 3 buckets of your game that are all average and not that one that's glowing, like Michael was saying. So I question that. And then I've got to say this, because I'm an on-course guy. And as an on-course announcer, I love a player-caddy combination that is talkative, because then I can go through 3 hours of show on the weekend and not say very much, and I sound like a genius, okay? And there are a few couples, Michael Greller and Jordan Spieth. Greller doesn't say a word except for yes, no. Spieth goes. Tyrrell Hatton before and after shots, he's going to do something. And then there's JT and Bones. Now, I'm not criticizing Bones. He's a hell of a caddy. He's caddied for Scott Simpson, Larry Myers, Phil Mickelson, Justin Thomas, Hall of Fame. Jimmy Johnson, same thing, was just a little bit more quiet, and he would almost probe Justin to answer his own questions. And I hear so much talking now between shots, and I wonder at times if he's not sort of overanalyzing and overthinking shots. I guarantee you, Rory and JT both, you give them half a set of irons or half a set of clubs, and you're like, go play. They're going to find a way to shoot under 70. But then when you got all this stuff and you're over reading wins and stuff like that and overthinking a lie, I mean, you come up, play your gut. You got to where you are because of the skill of who you are, what's in your soul, and your hands and your feet stuff. And don't handcuff yourself by this influx of information that all of a sudden you're like, well, am I right? Well, maybe not. And then all of a sudden, I know for sure the tension is the biggest wrecker of a golf swing in the world. And then you go to working on this, and then all of a sudden there's this doubt that creeps in. And look, I liked what I saw out of him this week. Was a little concerned maybe that it got a bit errant under pressure Sunday, because this Ryder Cup thing is pretty pressure packed. But look, he's Justin Thomas. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. So I like where he is, where he's like, I'm going to figure me out and I'm going to go do golf. I would say, hey, talk less, react more. You're going to be just fine.
And we're back. Let's go from the full swing down to that little baby swing, that putting stroke, Michael, because it's been a big story for Scottie Scheffler this year, having one of the best tee to green seasons statistically that we have ever seen. But the troubles come on the putting surfaces. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, there is not as much film data, technical stuff in terms of putting. I feel like putting has often been about feel. Am I wrong? Is there something that Scottie should be working on, or has he just got to do a better job of rolling the rock?
Well, he does need to do a better job of rolling the rock, no question about it. I think there are some players that will improve by knowledge, and there are some players that if you give them more knowledge, they get more confused. So I can't tell you that how Scottie's brain works. What I would suggest is that Scottie really needs to make in my opinion, a dramatic change, because frankly, what he's doing isn't working. And he's tried a few things. He's tried going to a little bit of a bigger blade. And then of course we saw him go to a mallet that he had specially built to kind of look like a blade or act like a blade, but it doesn't really work out that well. And I think what he needs to do is he needs to start putting a little bit of mass in this putter. I think he's got to weight this thing down a little bit more. One of the things that I see with Scottie is he's actually and we've got video in here to show this. He's actually got a I don't want to say he's got the yips, because that's not what I'm saying, but I do think he has a little flinch in his putting stroke at times, that his knees move a tremendous amount on very short putts. His eyes look very, very quickly to the hole. And so there are some technical things that he needs to work on in order for him to get to where his putting is dependable. And right now you look at his driver and it's dependable. You look at his iron play and it's dependable. You look at his short game and it's dependable. And you look at his putting and it's awful. It really is. It's awful. And so what I would suggest doing is for Scottie to do a real hard look and focus on quieting his body down, quieting his knee movement down, quieting his head movement down, and putting some mass in that putter, allowing that thing to swing a little bit more and get away from results. And I think one of the things that happens to players that hit a lot of greens, and Mark, you could certainly speak to this, a lot of players that, the statistics many years ago, we used to say, if you can make one birdie putt for every 4 greens that you hit, you're doing a pretty good job. And so if you're Scottie Scheffler and you're hitting 16 greens in a round, you should make 4 birdies. Well, if you look at what he does and you take out the par 5s that he hits in 2 and makes birdies with 2 putts, he's not really hitting that average the way he should. And what happens to a lot of players, particularly very good ball strikers, is they struggle making putts because the majority of their putts are coming outside of that 20-foot range. You take a guy like Brad Faxon, who doesn't really hit a lot of fairways, and then as a result, he doesn't really hit a lot of greens, and all of a sudden, he's hitting wedge shots to try to save par, and he's hitting them into 12, 11, 10 feet. He starts making those, and all of a sudden we go, Brad Faxon is a great putter. Well, what happens is you start thinking you're a great putter because you see that ball go into the hole. Scottie doesn't see the ball go into the hole very often. So I think also, too, one of the things that I would do if I was coaching him is I would get him to hit some putts from shorter distance. A lot of these, believe it or not, 2, 3, 4 foot putts, I would have him hit a pile of those just so that he gets used to seeing that ball going into the hole and then stretch it out from there. And I think that if he did that, he would, I feel like there's an apprehension in Scottie's mind that we don't know about, because if you watch him putt and you watch how quickly his eyes try to gather the ball after he has struck the putt, it's almost like he's trying to make the ball go in with his eyes. And of course, when you're doing that, you're in trouble. And his putting stroke is not great.
Amen, Michael. Absolutely. I would even add to that, because here's the thing about Scottie, and this is the conundrum. He keeps the thing. He keeps it awfully simple. Like when I've talked to him about technique, he talks about being in rhythm and finishing balanced. His feet all over the show, but that's him. And every day before every round of golf, he's got a 5-iron in his bag with a formed grip on it, a molded grip. And he checks his grip every day. That's about as far as Scottie goes technique-wise. And Randy Smith, to his wisdom and credits, allows him to do that. So as far as the putter goes, I'm with Michael. You got to match a putter style to your style of stroke. And his tends inward with all the movement, and the face wants to shut. So you want to get something that's going to facilitate some success with that. But then I'd say further to just making putts and seeing them go in is, I started teaching golf in 1995. And in all those years, I haven't seen a ball fall up a hill ever. I mean, ever. And I've never seen the hole come back to the ball either. So I'd say to him, hey, Scottie, when you go play 18 holes today, even if it's in the Waste Management WM Phoenix Open, I want to see 18 putts. If they miss on the high side of the hole, beyond the hole. Because I've seen so many putts at his hit that have nosedived, little low, 1.5 inches or so short, end up on the low side of the hole. You do that at Augusta, all of a sudden that thing is now 4 feet away instead of 2 feet away. Now there's the stress on someone who's isn't so bulletproof over short putts. So I'd say to him, this hole has to get a chance to catch the ball. And that will also get into the mindset there where there's more confidence, because the truth is, when you're not putting well, that hole looks like it's the size of a thimble. and you're not sure if you're going to make it from a few feet. So you're trying to finish it as close as you can, but you only start making putts when the ball's rolling at the hole and the hole has a chance to catch it. And if you're hitting putts with a little more authority that are missing on the high side, one or two of them nosedive in there, and then like Brad Faxon, you're like, dang, I'm not putting so bad. And then even more importantly for Scottie, who's the number one guy in the world, he doesn't have to answer those questions anymore. You see, the questions for Jordan Spieth and his game kind of started going away when he started playing better again. So for Scottie, I feel like putts have to miss high, and they have to miss long. They just do.
I want to just add one other thing here to what Mark said, because Scottie does keep things very, very simple, and it works really well with his full swing. The one difference in the full swing and putting is in the full swing, you can do whatever you want with the golf ball. You can hit it high, low, left, right, doesn't matter. But when you putt, you have to comply to the property. You have to look at the property and you have to play with the property. If the thing's going to go right to left, you got to play right to left. It's not like you can go, well, I'm going to play this left to right. You got to deal with what the property says. And so I think one of the things is it's a departure from how his mind works. To that end, what I would say is that he has to depart from what he does with his full swing in order for him to have success. Because what I can tell you is if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to keep getting what he's getting. And what he's getting is eventually at some point going to lead to a real significant problem. And we look at players that have struggled with certain parts of their game. And again, I don't want to say it's the yips, but I will say this. If he continues down the path that he's going, my prediction is, unless he gets more technical, believe it or not, and he does things more like Mark said, just go out there and just try to hit putts with as much break as you can and miss on the high side. Unless he departs from what he's doing now, he is going to end up in a really bad spot mentally. Because when I look at this, and I've seen this, when I look at this, he is on the cusp of heading down a bad path. The quickness with which he's gathering the golf ball with his eyes is alarmingly fast, to the point where he almost leaves the ball with his eyes before he makes contact. It's pretty bad.